What's up, everyone? TJ and Carrie here with Muscle Growth Mindset. We're going to talk about growth hormone, human growth hormone, also known as somatotropin. Don't get that confused with somatropin, which is the prescription for growth hormone. We're going to get into all that, talking about taking growth hormone versus naturally producing it in your body, the benefits, the drawbacks, all that. So let's just jump right in and tell me a little bit about what growth hormone can do.
Well, first off, it's responsible for a lot of cell proliferation, which is growth. That's why it's called the growth hormone.
There you go.
Another part is it preserves protein and glycogen stores, and it preserves glycogen by utilizing fat as the primary energy source.
Right. I think, we want to hit big on natural production of growth hormone. That's what we really want to focus on. And when you're young, your body naturally produces a lot of growth hormone. Expand on that a little bit.
So growth hormone is also used for cell proliferation. So in growth spurts, it's going to be, when you're young, it's going to be used to increase your size. And when you're young, you can see a lot of these other effects, especially the fat as a primary source of fuel. Young people until they're about 23, 25, they can eat whatever they want, whatever crap, and they will never gain any weight.
Yeah, this is definitely a factor in this. Obviously, not everybody can do that. But yeah, you have a fast metabolism and you have an excess of growth hormone production. Yeah, life's pretty easy at that point. Thank you, genetics. That kind of going off topic a little bit here, but I'm a little curious on that. We're going to have to do some research on this, unless you know something about it with growth hormone in relation to genetics.
There's a lot to do with gene expression and gene transcription there, but that is definitely for another topic.
Yeah, okay. I won't get off too much. Okay, all these things sound good, right? Cell proliferation, which means cell growth. That sounds good. Build muscle, right? Fat loss
can be.
Sounds great. Okay, so
Fantastic.
what are some ways we can do this? Like, how can we increase our growth hormone production?
So to manipulate it in your favor, there are supplements we can take, but there is also the fasted state is the number one way that we can manipulate a diet into our favor.
Okay, this is self-explanatory to some, but what's a fasted state? What do you mean by fasted?
It means pretty much no calories, a caloric deficit, a huge caloric deficit. So under 100 calories would be considered a fasted state.
So not eating.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the time frame we're talking here?
Okay. I don't know when it kicks in, maybe an hour or two. That's when you start a fasted state. And let me go off a little bit on a topic here. So body is in basically one of two states naturally. This is how it operates. So it's either in the store as many materials as possible for later use, or preserve for survival. And the storage state is where insulin, which we'll talk about later. The preservation state is human growth hormone. So it keeps the protein stores for later use. If you need, protein is used as a building block for anything. It's stored as stored as muscle tissue. Preserves your glycogen so you can run away from threats. So it makes sure that when you're using body fat, number one is fuel, so your glycogen is preserved in case you need to use it.
Okay. And this all happens in a fasted state.
Yes.
Because that's when you're going to produce more growth hormone when you're fasted. That's why when you sleep, it's one, because you're sleeping, but two, it's because you're fasting. Unless you're like me and occasionally you get up and eat in the middle of the night. But yeah, you want to maintain that fasted state when you sleep, and that's going to increase growth hormone production. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Take it away. A little more information on the fasted state and, growth hormone, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So we've already talked about a few ways we can increase and actually sleep, the fasted state. Intense exercise can increase growth hormone naturally. There's a few supplements you can take: colostrum, ashwagandha root, glycine, acetylcholine does that. Notice a lot of people take acetylcholine before they work out to increase the growth hormone release from the body.
You may not know that's why you're taking it if you've been taking it, but that is one of the benefits. So exercise, you talked about higher intensity exercise. Obviously, exercise is going to help produce growth hormone.
Mm-hmm.
The higher intensity you go, it's going to be more of an effect on growth hormone, right?
Yep.
Okay. And why do we want our growth hormone up when we exercise?
So what growth hormone is also responsible, other than preservation and using fat as fuel, is cell proliferation, which is growth. And most of us are trying to grow muscle, right? Generally, cell proliferation is a good thing for bodybuilders.
Right. We'll get into some negatives of that in a minute. We're going to talk about the negatives of growth hormone. So we've talked about supplements you can take. He gave you a few examples of that. Sleep, fasting, these are all ways to naturally increase your growth hormone production. Okay, why do we want to increase our growth hormone production naturally? Because it's going to promote fat loss.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help build muscle. You know, and more important than build muscle, it's going to help you from muscle tissue breakdown.
Yep. Okay. It also it helps connective tissues greatly. It grows those. People with acromegaly, which is an overexpression of growth hormone, have joint problems all the time. Carpal tunnel syndrome is sometimes caused by too much growth hormone in the body.
Right. We've talked about natural, right? So there's also an exogenous way to take growth hormone. There's prescriptions for it. There's black market. You can get growth hormone. Bodybuilders, powerlifters, and other athletes have done this. It all sounds great, all these benefits, but there's some drawbacks to taking growth hormone. Okay, so we don't want to promote it by any means. Definitely, if you're going to go this direction, you want to talk to your doctor and you want to know both sides. Yes, it's going to help with fat loss, especially as a bodybuilder. You're in a caloric deficit. It's hard to maintain muscle while you're dieting so hard. It's hard to build muscle when you're in a caloric deficit, so the growth hormone is going to help that. Okay, cell proliferation, building cell growth.
Yes.
Okay? That's great for your muscles, but it doesn't stop there, right?
Cell proliferation is when you're forwarding cell proliferation, it's all of it, which includes aging. If you want to get older faster, put lots of growth hormone in your body. If you have cancerous cells, it's going to give them the opportunity to grow as well. So not all of it is good. There is a plus. Growth hormone does increase your immune system, which may decrease the chance of cancer, but I wouldn't supplement with growth hormone personally.
Right. Also, organ growth. It's, I don't know if you've seen some bodybuilders with a distended abdomen. That could be from growth hormone and insulin usage. And then another thing is the joint pain. You talked about people with acromegaly, which is giantism. Another word for that.
Giant.
Yeah, Andre the Giant. He had it. That's why he was so big. But your joints, I guess from the faster growth, your joints are in pain. Mm-hmm. I have enough joint pain as it is. I don't need any more.
Me too.
Okay, so we're going to get into insulin and another topic, but we do want to mention that growth hormone and insulin affect each other, right? And this is another thing with possibly a downside as a strength athlete or a bodybuilder. If you're taking growth hormone, what's it do to your insulin?
Insulin and growth hormone are not friends. When you produce them naturally, either one or the other is dominant. So if you're spiking your insulin levels with food, your growth hormone is exiting your system. You can have both in your system at once, but the only way really to do that is by
supplementing one or the other.
Exogenous.
Or both, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of explains the fasted thing, because obviously when you're fasting, you're not eating, then you're not taking in those carbohydrates and spiking your insulin, right? So your insulin's at a low level, so your growth hormone can be at a higher level.
Yeah.
And when you spike that insulin by taking in carbohydrates, it's going to suppress your growth hormone levels.
Yep.
So it's really hard without supplementing to keep both levels up, which you don't necessarily want. There's side effects to both of those. So I think it's important to focus on one or the other, and it changes quickly.
Yes.
Right? You can spike your insulin, before your workout and get, benefits from that, and then, you fast overnight, you fast, maybe part of the day, and that's going to help, get growth hormone up, right? So speaking about fasting during the day, Carrie's been on this diet for a little while.
Intermittent fasting. I've been using what's called the 16-8 method, which means you eat all your calories in an 8-hour time span and you fast for the 16 hours. Now, I've been getting a lot of good results. I studied it pretty well first, and I've heard about intermittent fasting, so I had to try it. It's working. It's a legitimate form because high amounts of growth hormone released naturally from the body's own fasted state preserves protein. I don't see a lot of muscle breakdown, so I'm not losing strength. I think I'm gaining a bit, and I'm definitely losing a lot of body fat. I'm getting leaner, so it is legitimate.
Okay. So this is something, would you recommend doing this? I mean, you say you're getting leaner. Obviously, this is a good way to cut or to lean down. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend this if you're trying to gain muscle and get bigger?
No. At that point is when you want to manipulate insulin naturally to the variables in your favor through manipulating insulin. We'll get to that and how you do that in our next video.
Okay. Perfect. I know that's a lot of information. Hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it gives you a better understanding of growth hormone and how you can naturally manipulate it in the body, and then there's non-natural ways to manipulate it, but be careful on that. If you guys have questions or want to know more information, just comment below and let us know.
Yep. We'll be coming up with the insulin video and then another one of the diet for the best longevity to keep your lifespan up. So, coming soon.